they're rocks from the Lake District, including entire families from the Lake District, and the rocks are from Skiddaw, and it makes the most fantastic sound, and it is a huge pleasure to play. Anybody here ever played a rock instrument of any kind?
I have got one, yes. In a bonnet stone. It's designed to be strong. It's extraordinary.
It makes the most beautiful noise. So they have some of those music controls today. We have some security footage from the museum. Tippecanoe session. Does anybody know anything about Tippecanoe?
No.
This is to do with an American presidential election. So it's called Presidential Campaign Ball. So in 1840, William Henry Harrison ran for US president against the incumbent President Martin Van Buren. And his whole campaign centered around victory balls. So huge spheres. They were made of tin and of leather. They were more than 10 feet in diameter. And they had pro-Harrison and anti-Riverian slogans written on them. And his supporters would go to a rally and then they would roll the ball all the way to the next turn in order to gain attention. The word okay was in this election. So Martin Van Buren called Kingdom Richard Nixon, 1972.
Didn't see that coming.
No. What would you have? What would anybody have if they were going to run for president?
Well, I mean, my surname Akbar means the greatest.
Oh, well, you're off and running.
So it'd probably be Allahu Akbar. Probably Ishan is Akbar, so Ishan is the greatest.
Yes, that's right. I think that's very true. I think I just have I'd be best.
Yeah. I think the best slogan is the sort of thing you should say to children when you need them to pay attention. So I think mine would be Katie Brandt. Can everyone just calm down?
Yeah.
I used to do fringe festivals in Canada. Every year there was a comedy group, sketch group, and they called themselves Free Food and Beer, and that was their free food and beer all over the town.
Just make some ludicrous promise that it could never ever follow through. But just
free anal sex with Alan.
free.
Play on the name.
Do you give it or receive or?
No, it's up to you. You get it.
It's up
You
to
won't
you.
be charged.
Right. I think that's going to be less successful than you imagine.
Also, it's an empty promise.
Are you saying that normally that is something you have to pay for?
Yeah.
My favourite British slogan, I think it was 2005, was the Conservatives, "Are you thinking what we're thinking?" Do you remember that one?
Oh, yes.
Every time I saw the poster, I thought, well, it's biscuits. I'm not even thinking about biscuits. No.
Well, I certainly hope not. Free anal with Alan. Maybe just inexpensive anal.
Tesco value.
I think you're going to get elected. In the 19th century, getting elected president took really big balls. That didn't help us move on, really, did it? It wasn't really an idea.
Oh, that was good.
Thank you, darling. What's the problem with an ice runway? What do you say? It's too slippery. Too slippery.
You said it there, Sandy. I think that klaxon was for you.
Yes, but this
First time the host has ever got minus.
So the problem is not with taking off, it's not with landing. So what might the problem be?
Go inside.
It was with existing because it might just.
Basically. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So they are constructed in the Antarctic each year, so it services the US McMurdo Research Station. It's made of sea ice, and they use it from July to early December. Apparently, when it's good and solid, it's a bit like landing on concrete, it's absolutely fine. But when the heavier planes come to a stop after landing, they start to sink into the ice because the braking heats up the tyres. And so what they actually have to do when the plane is sitting there, they have to train lasers and monitor the height of the tyres. And if it goes below 10 inches that the aircraft has moved down, they have to repark it because it just keeps on sinking.
I mean, that's quite a bold. The first person who thought, let's land this hot plane on that ice.
Yes,
What were they drinking?
I know, it's fantastic, isn't it?
There's an airport that I landed on in Svalbard that's on the permafrost. It's very bumpy, but the Norwegians they're very practical people, and the pilot said, yeah, there's a bit bumpy landing because the permafrost is melting because of the global warming. Anyway, have a nice time in Svalbard. What?
We had our honeymoon in the Arctic, and I was talking to one of the people that we met there, and I said, how bad is the weather? He said, well, last winter was very bad. The porch blew off my house.
Yeah.
I said, well, that's terrible. He said, no, it was winter. Who needs a porch in the winter?
That's right.
Can't really argue with that. He said, fair enough. Let's have another herring.
There's enough problems with just normal runways before you start ice. There was in an old job I had to work in Guernsey, and I don't know if you ever travelled to Guernsey, but they have quite rickety small planes.
Yes.
And as we were landing, it was clear that he was running out of runway, the pilot. So I think what he decided was just to turn the plane off and let it drop. And when it dropped, he came over the town and went, whoopsie.
Once we were trying to land in a storm in Indonesia, and it didn't land, and then he came round again, and then he said, sorry, I bottled it.
The world's longest paved runway is twice the length of the shortest commercial flight. So the shortest commercial flight, I think we've mentioned it before, is Orkney. It's 2.7 kilometres, a little hop between Westray and Papa Westray Islands. But the runway at Chandobanda Airport in Tibet is 5.5 kilometres long. So here's the thing, the airport is nearly 4,500 metres above sea level, and the thinner air means that the aircraft needs to gain more speed in order to generate the lift required to take off. So that's an extraordinary thought, isn't it? The longest runway is twice the shortest commercial flight. Right, who's got the most rock and roll medical records?
Mick Jagger.
Why do you say Mick Jagger? Do you think
Because he's old.
No, it's not him. Any other thoughts?
So not someone like Lemmy from Motorhead.
Has he been under the doctor?
Well, years and years ago, my first job in TV was as a work experience runner here in this very building, and one of my jobs was to look after Lemmy. Not in that way. He was an absolute gentleman, lovely. As long as there were 5 bottles of Jack Daniels in his room, he was an absolute delight. He was actually very, very nice, but he did tell the story where he said that he had heard that people in the 60s were having full blood transfusions, people who had been addicted to drugs.
So that they no longer had drugs in their system?
Yes. And he had gone to his doctor and said, you know, I have been drinking and doing everything, you know, so that I'd be interested in this too. And he said his doctor told him that if they were to do that to him, the shock to his organs of clean blood would kill him instantly. So it would be best to remain 90% Jack Daniels.
Yeah, that's what
He lived to an ripe old age.
Yes.
That's why I've got a mug of JD right here.
So here's the thing, Western media, quite a wide range of it was banned in Russia during the 1950s and 60s. So there was a black market in bootleg gramophone records. Now you had to fashion it out of some kind of readily available source of thin plastic. What might it be?
Condoms.
No, we are talking about X-ray sheets. And in fact, I have a record here.
Is that an actual one?
That is an actual one. So they were known, I'm going to try and say it in Russian, Rock na Kostyak, rock on bones, they were known as. They were also known as Skeliet Maya Babushki, a skeleton of my granny.
I see, so I can see now.
I've got this,
See the image of the bones.
light box, and if I hold it up like that,
Amazing.
Oh, amazing.
then you can...
But does the record just sound like someone going, ah?
This is a record by a Latvian-Russian singer called Konstantin Sokolsky, but we couldn't get permission to play it.
I'll do it.
But they pressed all sorts of music on these records. You could get Elvis, you could get the Beatles, you could get the Beach Boys, the Rolling Stones, Ella Fitzgerald, all sorts of banned Russian artists. And they were very expensive because they only lasted for about 7 or 8 plays before the grooves completely degraded. But very popular for not only for their musical content, but their appearance.
So what is on this record then that he doesn't want playing?
A wonderful, sort of rather jolly, rollicking Russian song.
Have you heard it?
Yes, I have.
Can you recreate it to some extent? Right.
I was in a pub in Glasgow for a minute.
With a couple of nipple tassels.
You can still buy them today. What I like is if they've got better looking bones on them, they're more expensive. On the subject of musical roles, I once had a piano. Does
It's a player piano.
yes, player piano, yeah.
So it has a roll of sort of paper that you
Yeah,
attach
fun when I
to.
was a kid. It's like a parchment with holes in.
Yeah.
And if you push the pedals quicker, it plays.
Yeah, so like a pneumatic air system, and it reads paper rolls of music. There are more advanced versions which exist called reproducing pianos, and it's not just the notes but the volume and the tone, and you can effectively reproduce a live performance. So there are lots of famous composers, including Gershwin and Grieg and so on. They were recorded performing their own pieces. I mean, presumably now, darling, that must be possible with modern
Yes.
technology that
You could do if you wanted. Yes, I
Just
mean there are
reproduce.
simpler ways,
Yeah.
like laptop.
You're so boring.
I know. It's much more interesting to try and let's record it on some kitchen roll.
But the difference between that and a laptop is that, in a way, with this reproducing piano, you are still
Yeah.
sort of watching the live performance.
That's right. Well, what the brilliant thing about this was that it would record the expression of the piano as well. So the player would put literally their very own imprint on the roll. So it wasn't just the notes; it was actually the expression and the way they played it.
So it's a bit like Grieg's ghost turns up to play for you.
Yes, it would be. It would be exactly like having Grieg in the room, and we all know what that's like.
When I was a child, I learnt some Indian classical music, and we used something called harmonium, which is a wind-based kind of piano. So you press it like this.
That's right. It's a beautiful thing. Then.
Yeah, it's really, really beautiful.
I'm sure it's very musical. Do you know? Bit of choreographer in it?
I was a Bollywood dance choreographer,
How good is that?
Oh my goodness.
God, give us a couple of moves.
Yeah.
Go on.
My husband is obsessed with Bollywood dancing. He loves it. But if you could teach me a couple of signature moves to teach him, he would be thrilled.
Okay, I'll teach everyone then.
Okay.
Something simple.
Okay, now the common misconception of kind of Asian or Indian dance, which is the light bulb and pat the dog,
I can do that.
which you can, but that's also racist. So
Right, I won't do that
Pat the
then.
dog, I won't do that.
well,
then.
we'll teach you.
Do we have to get up?
No, you can do it sitting down. Because the beauty of Bollywood is a lot of the dancing is in the face.
Oh, okay.
If any of you have ever looked for a remote under a sofa, have you ever had to do that?
Yes,
So you
yes.
kind of go like that.
Yeah.
And you don't find it,
Yeah.
and then do the other hand, and do it together.
Like it.
Oh.
And then middle finger to your thumb.
Kill the wasp, kill the wasp.
Kill the wasp. Throw the wasp away.
Oh.
Kill the wasp. Throw the wasp away. Right, so let's do it together.
Okay, ready?
We've got a
Ready?
routine.
Ready?
Right hand first.
Okay.
In, can't find it. In, can't find it. Found a wasp, through it. Found a wasp, through it. There you go.
Have you made a living doing that?
It seemed to work. Yeah, it was 20 quid a job. You know, you did what you could when you were 16.
Fantastic. In Soviet Russia, music records cost an arm and a leg. Well, or at least a couple of ribs. While we're in Russia, how do you ignite a Russian rocket?
Buy her an expensive dinner.
A space rocket, you mean? A satellite launching.
You know, a proper Soyuz
They don't have the conventional rocket fuel type of.
Well, they do have rocket fuel, but you need to ignite it. How are you going to do that?
2 sticks right next to it, and then
You are so close.
Lighter, get lighter. Does anyone have lighter?
Okay, I have no lighter, but I have
Matches.
matches.
What?
Is that
No way.
absolutely the answer? So the Americans, they're lit by the equivalent of a spark plug or the generation of heat through electricity or some kind of chemical reaction to create the heat. The Russian rockets are lit by enormous matchsticks.
I just have to say, the key thing here from a safety point of view is when you've lit it, if it doesn't go off into space,
Yeah.
Yes.
don't return
No,
the rocket.
don't go down the rocket.
No.
So officially, these are called PZUs. It's the Russian abbreviation for Pyrotechnic Ignition Device. They are birch sticks, and they stand upright inside the rocket. They poke into the engine nozzles. So if you look at these things on the right-hand side of the picture, each one has a pyro charge attached to the end of it, and they can be detonated simultaneously to light each individual engine. And we've made a model of what that would look like. So basically, it's a very, very large matchstick. It's a wooden
Lord.
birch stick, and if you look into the picture of the engine nozzles, you can just see the end bit, that T-bar at the bottom of the thing. So they've been pushed up inside, and what happens is each has a pyro charge. You can see it on our model. They're attached to the end, which can be detonated at the same time to light each individual engine, and a signal is sent to mission control to say that we know it's all fired up, and when all of the charges signal, then they know it's good to open the fuel tanks and get going. They're amazing. They were developed initially in the 1950s for the R-7 intercontinental rocket. They're still used for the Soyuz launches.
Now?
Yeah, today, yeah. Which up until 2020 was the only way you could get to the International Space Station.
I genuinely had an image in my head of like 100 Russians carrying this massive wooden stick, running against the rough surface and watching it.
Yes.
But the fact that it's so simple has a tremendous advantage. So in 2016, there was a launch aborted because one of these PZUs failed to properly ignite. It's very simple. You can relaunch the next day. You just replace one matchstick rather than having to dig around and find out which bit it is that's not working.
Yes, there is a merit, isn't there, to simplicity in these things. You know, don't over-spec it. And the Russians are very good at that.
Yeah.
Oh, I was recently at the Tank Museum.
Obviously.
In Bovingdon.
Obviously.
I look about like a man that's been to a tank museum. No, it was very interesting because the Germans and the Americans had radio control between the tank driver and the gunner, but the Russians didn't have that. So what they did was the guy in the turret had to have really long legs, and he would poke the gunner with his foot. You know, signals. One bang on the shoulder, heart slightly right. Two bangs.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And
You
so
can tell a gunner by the bruises on his shoulders.
and it was much more reliable because the radio would sometimes fail, but the kicking on the shoulder
Works every time.
works every time.
But what if you dislocated his shoulder?
I like your concern for a gunner that you don't even know.
I look like a GP, so you've got to kind of keep up with the people.
The really bizarre thing about the Soviet rocket program, it was partly founded out of a desire to create a way of transporting the resurrected ancestors to other planets. I know, this is one of those things that you just think, that doesn't sound right, but it's absolutely true. So there was a Soviet rocket scientist, he's regarded as sort of one of the fathers of modern rocket science, called Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. There he is, sitting, thinking about rockets. And he was a student of a philosopher called Nikolai Fedorov. And Fedorov wrote this marvelous thing. He thought death should be abolished. He saw it as a kind of design flaw in human beings,
Fair enough.
and that we should resurrect all our ancestors. So he thought that if we travelled across the cosmos, we would be able to collect all the particles up that made up the dead and somehow, I don't know, squish them back together, create the original person. And once the entirety of humanity, past and present, was resurrected and immortal, then they would need homes, and then we could colonise the whole galaxy. They became known as Russian